All right, let's jump right in. Today we're tackling a really powerful idea about truth, power, and what happens when an argument isn't really an argument at all. We're looking at power and the pretense of justice.
So let's start with this quote. It's over 2,000 years old, but it still hits hard. The historian Thucydides said, "The strong do what they will, and the weak suffer what they must." Now, it's really important to get this right. This isn't him saying this is how things should be. No, it's a cold, hard look at how power often works when justice is just off the table.
And that really leads us to the big question for today, doesn't it? What happens when you're in an argument, but the other side isn't actually interested in finding the truth? What if the whole conversation is just a show, a setup for a conclusion that's already been written?
To really get our heads around this, we're going to dig into an ancient parable. Now, this isn't just some kid's fable about talking animals. For centuries, this story was seen as a piece of political instruction, like a user's manual for the harsh realities of power.
So, the scene starts out simply enough. You've got a wolf and a lamb at a stream, just two creatures trying to get a drink. But there's one key detail, a simple fact of physics. The wolf is upstream and the lamb is downstream. The water flows from the wolf to the lamb. Remember that.
And right out of the gate, the wolf makes his move. It's an accusation. He says, "You are making my water dirty." But based on the one fact we know, this is physically impossible. The water is flowing away from her, not toward him.
The lamb, she thinks she's in a reasonable debate, so she replies with perfect logic. She just points out the simple reality of the situation. How can I possibly be messing up your water when it's flowing from you to me? In any honest conversation, that would be it, right? Case closed. But the fact that his charge failed doesn't stop the wolf for a second. When the facts of the present don't work for him, he just pivots. He reaches into the past and invents a whole new crime. "Well, you said bad things about me before." He completely changes the battlefield from physics to history.
And once again, the lamb comes back with a perfect, fact-based defense. An airtight alibi. She couldn't have slandered him because, well, she didn't even exist yet. She wasn't born. She is totally, completely innocent.
And this is where the mask completely slips. The wolf has been beaten on physics, beaten on the timeline, so he just gives up on facts entirely. He makes it about family, about your group. Okay, fine. If it wasn't you, it was your father.
And just like that, the debate is over. The whole performance is done. The wolf doesn't need to be right. He just needs to be more powerful. And without another word, he takes her logic, her truth, her innocence. In the end, none of it mattered.
So you have to ask yourself, what went wrong here? The lamb was logical. She was truthful. She was innocent. So why did she lose so badly? Well, it all came down to one huge miscalculation on her part. She completely misunderstood what kind of situation she was in.
And this right here is the heart of the entire lesson. The lamb believed she was in a dispute, an argument where facts and reason matter, where truth can win. But she wasn't. She was in a selection, a process where the outcome was decided before she ever opened her mouth.
Let's just break this down so it's crystal clear. On one hand, you have what the lamb thought was happening, a dispute, a contest of ideas. But on the other hand, you have what was actually happening, a selection. It was just a process to pick a target for something that was going to happen anyway. Her arguments were perfect, but her understanding of the game was fatally wrong.
So let's put a clear definition on this idea of a selection. A selection is any situation where the outcome is already locked in. All the talking, all the questions, the back and forth, it's just a formality. Think of it like a legal or moral costume that you put on an act of violence that's already been decided on. The goal isn't to find the truth, it's just to create a justification.
Now, this isn't just an old story. This pattern plays out all the time, so the real question is, how do you spot these selections in real life? Well, it turns out there are specific tactics, a kind of predatory pattern that gives the whole game away. Okay, this table here decodes the whole thing. Check out the pattern. When you see an accusation come before any evidence is presented, that's a huge red flag. It usually means the verdict is already in. When you see beautiful moral language being used as a weapon, that's just as being used as a mask for pure appetite. And when someone offers to have a dialogue, but you get the feeling the outcome is already set in stone, trust that feeling. It is.
Okay, so if arguing is pointless, what are you supposed to do? What's the right move when you realize you're not in a dispute, you're in a selection? Well, the answer is pretty counterintuitive. It's not about arguing better or shouting louder. It's about understanding the strategic power of silence.
And this brings us to the really hard lesson here. The key takeaway is this: do not argue with people who don't need to be right to destroy you. The lamb's fatal error was engaging it all. She played the game, thinking that being correct would be her shield. It wasn't.
And if you want a powerful historical example of this very principle, look at Jesus before Herod. Herod wasn't looking for truth. He was looking for a show, for political cover. And how did Jesus respond? He said absolutely nothing. Now that wasn't weakness. It was profound clarity. He saw the game for what it was, a selection, and he simply refused to play.
So we can actually turn all this ancient wisdom into a practical, real-world playbook. First, try to figure out the other person's intent before you even start talking. Is this a good faith discussion, or is it a trap? Second, if you realize you're in one of those traps where all the power is on one side, just withdraw. Don't engage. And third, the long-term move, build your own power, your own alliances, quietly. Being visible without having any real leverage can just make you a target.
All of this leads us to a final, unifying moral idea. And it's not about becoming a wolf yourself, not at all. It's about finding this really difficult but essential balance between two virtues that seem like opposites.
This ancient verse really nails it. Be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. This is a call for a much more sophisticated kind of morality. You need the serpent's wisdom to see the wolves and understand how they operate, but you have to hold on to the dove's innocence, your commitment to what's right and true.
And this just lays out the stakes perfectly. If you have wisdom but no innocence, if you understand power but you have no moral compass, you just become a tyrant. You're the next wolf. But if you have innocence without wisdom, if you're good and kind but totally naive about the dangers out there, you become prey. You're the next lamb. To truly be a force for good in the world, you need both.
So what's the final word on all of this? It's this. In a world where wolves exist, just being righteous isn't enough. It has to be paired with strength and wisdom, or it has to be guarded by the clarity to retreat. The ultimate question you should always ask yourself isn't just, am I right? It's, do I understand the game being played?